How's it going?
Hello. All good. All good. What about you? You?
Okay, you're kind of a late night owl, you were saying?
Oh yeah,
You
it's
do
late. I'm an owl, so I sleep pretty late, so that's why.
do you do a lot of work with the US based people?
Yes, US, Canada.
Yeah.
So
Cool. Well, I appreciate it. You guys in India, do you give a fuck about the Super Bowl at all? It's a Super Bowl today.
Super Bowl, no.
Does
I
anybody
have no
there watch
idea.
it? I mean, it's going to be like in the middle of the morning, I guess. So no, I'm not really about it either.
No
So
one watches.
it's cricket over there, right?
Yes, cricket, but soccer or football has a good fan following here.
Yeah. Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I've got Mr. Ankoor. You got to tell me your name. I'm a Texan. I'm going to fuck it up. It's Ankoor. Is that right?
Ankur Bhattacharjee.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was
Ankur.
going to say. Yeah. Awesome. So I appreciate it. I've pointed so many people to your IG. I always shout you out as having like some of the best in-depth look at some of the nuances of some of the stuff that we do. And I talked to Sean, who I love and is great. And so normally I get like a big background and I dive through your movement model and like how you developed it, but I have like so much stuff I want to cover. So what I am curious about is how did you end up linking up with Sean and what's that relationship exactly?
Oh, how I ended up. Okay, so I used to work in the corporate sector, in the IT sector. Was an corporate employee till 2018 end. Left everything, started doing CSCS and other courses. And then lockdown happened. And I was also training people to get fit, like lose weight, lose fat, and gain muscle. So that domain. And then lockdown happened. So I started. To talk to coaches, clinicians on Instagram, so that I can up my game to see, like how can I make myself better. And then through someone, you like a page, you follow a page, and then the recommended comes up, and you see those pages. Sean Estrada came up, and I went to his page. The stuff that he posted was pretty relatable, and I DM'd him. Saw that he was working on this breathing stuff, which I had no idea about, no clue. So back in lockdown, so it was very new for me, and we started talking. And I joined his mentorship program. I think it was round three. It has just started, two rounds done. Third round, I joined in, and I don't know what he saw in me. He said he gave me an offer. Will you join AMP as a mentor from round four? I'm like, okay, that would be
That's
a great,
fast.
great opportunity. Yeah, but we did have a lot of back and forth with the messages, and uh, he gave me a very elder brother vibe where he guided me. He told me like things to do, things not to do, how to proceed with this model in this industry. Yeah, I mean, I he guided me a lot. And after round three, yeah, I'm part of AMP since then.
Okay, so he's kind of been like a mentor figure a little bit then.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I always say this. I don't know if people in US will get this reference or not, but I always tag him as Sir Alex Ferguson to this Cristiano Ronaldo. So
That's funny.
when Cristiano Ronaldo first came to Manchester United, his boss was Sir Alex Ferguson, who molded him into the player that he is today. So
Nice. Yeah,
yeah.
cool. I do a little bit of work with Zach, and I know he worked with Zach originally
Ah,
too when he first started out. So it's funny how it just trickles down. And then maybe real quick, you can speak a little bit on like how like what are your thoughts on like the traditional education system? Because a lot of obviously none of this stuff you're going to learn in basic anatomy in like school. So like a lot of people like they kind of push back because they're like, oh well, like what's your education background or why have I never been taught this? But it's like really like the best practitioners in the world. Like, you can't learn any of this in the classroom. So what's your kind of thoughts and background on that?
so first of all, I don't even come from the traditional background, so
Yeah, me neither.
maybe that acted as a positive point because that took away all the burden from me. I had no previous burden.
I feel the
I
same
could
way. I
start,
think I think that's helpful to go in
yeah,
as a clean slate. Yeah.
yes, a totally clean slate. And it made sense to me because I have an engineering background. So I can see things like whatever PRI concepts, the bill concepts that they're talking about. I could see, okay, okay, this makes sense.
So
Like
I think does
from
it
a,
help you like sorry to interrupt you, but does it help you like kind of bridge that gap between the kind of dead guy anatomy where they're just looking at kind of the more basic science and then you're like, okay, there's pressure
yes,
management, I'm an engineer, there's so many other things to it.
yes, yes, yes. like all this bones changing shape over time, and how breathwork works, how expansion, where do the guts go, and the pronation, the movement of the bones, everything I can visualize in front of my eyes whenever I listen to this topics or I read this. So yeah, that has helped me a lot, and most importantly, not having the previous burden. I think that would be the biggest advantage. I appreciate people who have the previous background and yet they keep an open mind and then get into this. That takes a lot of courage because you have already spent a lot of years and money into studying what you're studying, that guy anatomy or the traditional stuff. To break that barrier and to come to compression expansion and learn, okay, this is how a live human moves rather than what you find in a dry cadaver. So that takes a huge leap, and I appreciate people who can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always a lot of people I've talked to like had started this model before they went into school. And so they're like, okay, I have to
Uh,
just kind of like nod and smile as I go through everything and like just get through the class. So it's funny because, like I said, I don't have the background, the traditional background either. And I think that, a lot of people, it's like they want to know where to learn this stuff. Like I started in PRI. I think you started in PRI. And like you
I
said,
did the primary courses, yes, home
yeah,
study.
exactly. And I think that's a good starting route. But like you said, get in somebody who knows their thing, like a mentor. Like I do mentorship. I'm sure you do with other people. And like I said, I still call with Zach. So that's the best way to really get this is to do it on your own and then get somebody who's done it in practice and kind of learn from them. So what I wanted to jump right into is I wanted to talk about bodybuilders. So I know you, I mean, you probably work with some bodybuilders, I'm assuming, especially lately.
Yeah.
But a lot of what we do is for like pain management. And
Hmm.
what are some of the benefits of what we do for bodybuilders who aren't dealing with pain? Like why do they benefit from it? And a lot of them are dealing with pain, but what are some of the benefits for someone who like obviously there's benefits for a pain population. We can make them feel better, but what about the aesthetic group?
I would say if you're, first of all, if you're in pain or not in pain, both kinds of bodybuilders. First of all, if you're not in pain, I think that's the perfect way to start. Perfect timing. Because whenever you're increasing a lot of muscle mass and gaining a lot of strength, you are going to give up movement options. It is what it is. Now, how much buffer space do you have in order to squeeze into it? If you have slightly more than someone else, you will have more space to play around and you will last longer in the game. But if you are starting from a point where it's like hurting, everything hurts, I mean, that's also a pretty good time to start it. But someone who has no pain, please start it because the more space you have in your ribcage and pelvis, the more you can get away with all the compression that you are putting into the system. So it's always where your starting point is.
So essentially you've got more space to compress into.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, so that you can, so you have, how do I say this? You have a room and you have a lot of things to keep into it. The bigger the room, the better.
Yeah.
So that's
That's
how
that's
I
exactly how
visualize
Zach
it.
described it the first time I asked Zach, like kind of to describe what was
Oh,
going on.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
some of the we see some pretty common presentations, and then one of the things that I'm
Hmm.
kind of like known for is talking about like rib flare, and it kind of gets some weird
Ah.
connotations now too. But in general, like why could rib flare potentially be a bad thing? Like maybe give me some of your thoughts on like the proud chest up cue and like if that is there a difference between expanding the chest and orienting and so on? You kind of know where I'm going.
So rib flare is when your rib cage is unable to expand front and back. So you take a breath of air in, chest should open, back should open. If that does not happen, what the ribcage will end up doing is it will create shapes so that it can somehow take in air. Now you don't expand, so everything here is like not expanding. So the area here, scap and below the scap, because it's not expanding, it will push the spine and the ribcage forward. Now, as it gets forward, here it's the cartilage around the sternum, and bending the cartilage is much easier than bones. So it's softer. So it slowly starts taking this shape and it pokes out. And ribcage, the sternum compression, dorsal rostral compression, and then you end up like your ribcage starts elevating slowly like this. You're constantly in a shrug mode, neck, scalenes, SCMs, traps overactive, and this pokes out. Now, nothing is a problem until it is. This is biomechanics. You never know how much of what can be a problem, and that is something that a lot of people find difficulty understanding because they say, "Oh, he has rib flare, but he does not have pain." Yeah, great. That's amazing. But if this continues, if you keep on compressing yourself, at what point your body will say, "Okay, I've had enough." Now you have now shoulder issues, neck issues, um, tightness here, a lot of other places. So that is why it is so important that you have enough space in the rib cage, some amount, does not have to be perfect, of course, but some amount of expansion here, scapula and below scapula, so that this does not go like this, and it you have the ability to bring the front lower ribs down and back with exhalation without dipping the sternum, of course. So you should have this. And that will help you preserve shoulder range of motion up to an extent. Does not have to be perfect, especially if you're a bodybuilder. But having just enough might be the difference between you like screaming with shoulder pain, or you're like it's slightly nagging. That's fine. I can get through the workout. That could be the difference. So
Yeah, and bodybuilders don't need anything crazy. That's all that big thing.
yeah,
It's like
that's
everything's so controlled. It's so small. Like it's really
yeah.
you just need the littlest bit. So
Little bit can be like a world of a difference. Like you don't have to get like 10-15 degrees of IR back. That 5 degree, that three
yeah.
degrees might be like, I feel so great.
Yeah, and a lot of bodybuilders, like I work with a couple like top level guys, and it's like once they have any bit of space, they utilize it like really well. They're very connected to
Oh
their
yeah,
body.
yeah.
Like they can, where somebody else, sometimes people need like almost more availability to do something with. Where bodybuilders, if they're high level, it's like the smallest little sliver, and you'll see some pretty big changes. And so, what are like some potential like negative training consequences if someone is stuck in this kind of compensatory inhale state where they can't go back?
Uh, okay, so let me share this. You must have heard while you were bodybuilding and building up these muscles. I think it's worldwide. Everyone says, okay, your upper chest is not developed. It's a common thing that you will hear the gym pros saying to each other. Oh, your upper chest needs to get developed. So you do incline presses for upper chest. So what I understood over the years, like, oh shit, this is an expansion problem. It's not a pec developmental problem. Like, if you are not expanded enough in your rib cage, so if you're compressed in the upper rib cage, organs get pushed down towards the gut, towards the pelvic floor, and when you're not expanded here, this creates a flatter representation and not the rounder representation, air legging, which can be like bodybuilding is about aesthetics. So that can be a big problem if your ribcage does not expand much. So ribcage expansion will help you in aesthetics as well for bodybuilders. So that's a very important thing. I kind of forgot the question. Can you repeat it?
Just when someone is stuck in the kind of rib flared position, like what are
Oh yeah,
some negative training consequences, things that they might struggle with?
yeah. So someone who is like constantly that person over time will end up losing the rotation in the body, in the thorax, the ability to alternate and reciprocate the rib cage, that will slowly start to get lost. So that person will be now all like this, this, instead of being able to turn the left and the right. Now, if you are a bodybuilder, what I feel is during posing, you have to, there are a lot of poses where you have to pose one side, right? These are poses, one-sided poses. So if you are locked and you are like this, what will happen is your poses from the side, if you do not expand both the sides enough, that would be not so aesthetically pleasing, or the asymmetry might show up even in the bilateral poses. And lifting wise, of course, I think your lifts will slowly start to suffer, because if you do not have enough space, you can only do bilateral up to a point, beyond which the body will start to tell you that you gain some motion back. Otherwise, beyond this, I'll I'll give up. So you'll start having a lot of issues in the body.
Yeah, there's like a difference between just moving a compressed system in space versus having true eccentric yield, right? So it's like
Yeah,
what I notice a lot of times if people have that dorsal rostral compression and the big rib flare, it's like they've
yeah.
kind of lost the ability to yield a lot of the tissues on the front when they are doing a press. You'll see like because the
Oh, yeah.
scapula can't really keep any sort of like integrity on the back, you'll just see them kind of weird scapulohumeral rhythm, and it's like they're getting a really deep stretch, but there's actually not a ton of going on. There's a lot of posterior compression to get there, and then like, you see that with things too, like even rows and stuff too, right? Some people they row and you
Mm.
don't see the glenohumeral extension, you just see immediate like compression and retraction. It's like you're missing a step there. Yeah, like they're supposed to be able to
Yes,
hang on the
yes,
rib cage a little bit more. So a lot of times with
yes,
bodybuilders, if they're not in pain, it's kind of like I have to like, get them to buy into by like having them feel it because they'll feel a huge difference as soon as they
yes.
either get some expansion posteriorly and then do it the way I recommend, or sometimes it's just a setup thing or different apparatus, and they'll be able to feel and like, okay, well now I can buy in because if you don't have pain, sometimes for a bodybuilder, it's hard to like conceptualize like, well,
Ah,
why do I even care?
true, true, true. If it is not hurting, everyone feels pretty invincible. So if things are not hurting, it's only when it starts hurting that, okay, I need to take a step back, maybe.
Yeah, and then like you were saying, there's a lot of indicators too. It's like something will feel poppy or weird before it becomes like a big
Yes,
issue, and like
yes,
people,
yes,
oh,
correct.
it's not bad. I used to have clients like, oh, to that, how'd you feel? It was good. I was like, you look a little weird, nothing but like, well, I felt my shoulder doing it, but it wasn't like that. I'm like, well, that's not stuff you should be aware of, and like that
Ah,
leads to
correct.
worse stuff. So a lot of times people will do something, and I'll like reposition them, have them do a breathing, and then they're doing it like that little tiny pop that didn't hurt, it's gone. And I'm like,
Mm,
see that
mm.
that's getting you more space. Like that's a precursor.
Yes,
I feel like people are
yes,
afraid to be intuitive with their bodies nowadays, and this system allows you to do that. I feel like.
yes. I agree. I agree. I mean, even if you're a bodybuilder, you need some amount of rotation. Even power lifters, you need some amount of rotation, some space, buffer space for safety purpose, as you can say, so that you have something to fall back on. Otherwise, if you're just squeezing, 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 I mean,
Right?
it can backfire after a point.
Yeah, and I mean, as a bodybuilder, like you want to get like tension in a lengthened position, and again, we want to hit true
Yes,
length instead of just compressed through there
yes,
and then consensually explode
yes.
out of there. You're not actually getting those tensions to start from a lengthened position. So, like, this could also affect, like, say, your hamstrings, right? Like, how could this impact your hamstring development if you were stuck like this?
Ah, okay. So first of all, that area, this this area for a lot of bodybuilders, outlet closed,
And that's what we would
femur
call like
on.
lower posterior pelvic compression.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, like femur, yard, like all this space reduced. Now, uh, the the semi-tendinosus and membranosus, the two semi brothers, which can actually IR the pelvis, then not as active, I would say. So they're not doing the job of bringing the pelvis into an IR shape. So that can impact hamstring training, that can impact your leg training, everything. When you are squeezed from here, the goal is to be able to produce force into the ground through your heel, inner heel, uh, while ball of big toe is in touch and without losing the outer foot. The goal is to produce force into the ground while keeping this as much open as possible. That would be optimal scenario. But if you're already here and you are producing force into the ground, no matter what the exercise is, this will only get smaller and smaller and smaller. And that over time can create ham- hamstrings development issue. Yes, quads, unevenness, VL versus VMO. Too much of VL, like huge outer quad, not enough of VMO, because VMO will also depend on how much you can open this.
And that's
So,
why a
and how
lot of
much.
bodybuilders, excuse me, that's also why a lot of bodybuilders sometimes their left vastus lateralis is a little even more overdeveloped than the right.
Yeah. So
It's-
the left side has lost space so much. It's all ER'd here, left side. And when you're ER'd on the distal femur, proximal femur, the distal femur will be IR'd, and that is driven immensely by the VL.
yeah.
And so the opposite cannot happen. So the VMO is not. yeah, I mean, not much doing there. So it's all the VL taking in a huge VL
Yeah.
there, which also creates it's not aesthetic, right? If there has to be a proportion to it,
Yeah.
VL, VMO.
Well, I
So
mean, as a
yeah,
bodybuilder, we want that fucking thing as big as possible. But usually you'll see that
everything
overdevelop.
there.
You see it overdevelop on the left because it kind of gets leveraged for almost internal rotation if it's so skewed out there. Whereas on the
Yes.
right they can have it too if they're super bilateral. A lot of times you see the right adductor be pretty overdeveloped too. That's pretty common. And so, what are some of the negative like health consequences and of the some of the aesthetics that come with having a pelvic outlet that's pretty closed off?
Oh yeah. Okay. So now that you bring this up, let me also talk about the case that you had commented on, that I had posted about as well, on my Instagram page. So this being super closed, this being super closed in people, bodybuilders or Gen Pop, anyone for that matter. When this is really, really close, the pelvis is like going forward in space, concentric orientation back there. In order to stop that, there will also be anterior compression going on, which will reduce the distance, this distance, spine and the pubic symphysis, the sacrum and the pubic symphysis. Now, what that can do is, so this pelvis, which is ER to the max, will lack the ability to push the organs up from the pelvic floor. And when that happens, it puts an insane amount of load on the pelvic floor. Now, prolapse, incontinence, um difficulty pooping, peeing, constipation, uh, the issues in men like erectile dysfunction that can happen,
Your little penis?
or
What
the
was that one you were talking about? On the that's the one you're talking about? The little hard penis? What is that?
so that is what I was talking about in the post that I posted recently of a client getting much better results with this. So he had
He posted the before and
hard
after the
flaccid
dude's dick. Go check it out if you want to see it. I'm just
so
joking.
hard flaccid hard flaccid syndrome. It's a thing where uh, the penis does not get totally erect and it also does not get totally short and ground state, so it's stuck in between, and that is like a very uncomfortable position for a lot of men out
That'll
there.
motivate
So
you to get your shit fixed if your dick doesn't go up all the way.
I'm telling, if you forget everything, as a man, if you're a bodybuilder, even as women, like, you don't want anything to affect this area. So please, 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 if you're watching this, try to give little opening there. It does not have to be great because you're a bodybuilder, but at least some opening in this area, please, because pelvic floor, I'm telling you, as per my experience, pelvic floor problems and neck and cranial problems are the worst.
Yeah.
You elbow pain can deal with it, knee pain can deal with it. These two issues take away the confidence of people. Like, it takes away, sucks the life out of people, and that is why I tell everyone, please keep some outlet space open.
And
Please, whoever
you'll
you.
present your butt better too if you're one of these no butt kind of dudes,
Oh
you
yeah,
know. Exactly. And then and also you'll be able to develop that kind of like you were talking about the tie-in a little bit more, that glute ham tie-in because it's kind of an IR bias position to be able to get hit. And
yes,
so
yes.
what are some ways people can open their outlet like drill wise and then training wise? Like are you a fan of doing like weighted sideline breathing and stuff like kettlebells or sandbags or anything?
Oh yeah, yeah. So what I do with my clients is, if the issue is like really serious and it's a very serious pelvic floor issue, I would do sideline. Uh, so this breathing,
On the
but instead
roller?
of this, I would say on a metal bottle. Like,
Okay.
the harder the thing is, the easier it is to create a shape change.
Yeah.
It will be sensitive initially, but they will get over it soon. Use a metal bottle. Harder the substance, greater the opening. You can also you can sit
Oh,
on something which is hard enough to create space between
haven't done that.
the sit bones. Take something hard and sit on it and breathe in and out. So those two things will open up your outlet up to a pretty good extent. So this is something that I use on a day-to-day basis with my clients. It's just my staple, because with bodybuilders, first of all, with bodybuilders, they have squeezed their bodies up to the max, and the bones have literally bent into ER shape for a lot of them. if there's something which will give them the biggest ROI is a hard substance bending thing into IR. Breathing superimposed on top of it. You you are being bent into IR in the pelvis by a hard substance. Now do breathing drills on top of it. But just don't do the breathing drills without any hard substance around, because as a bodybuilder, you have compressed yourself way too much compared to a gen pop. So you will need a harder thing to open the space faster.
Yeah, and it's interesting because bodybuilders, they all have slightly different training styles. Although you'll typically see that they'll be pushed pretty far one way, but then, I work with a lot of powerlifters, and they're like the most extreme version possible. And like when I have them do the sideline, like I get so much bang for the buck. They're just like so amazed. I'm like, dude, this you don't give me that much credit. You're just laying on the ground. And so, what are some like things that people could do training wise? Are you aware of like anything we could do to help open the pelvic outlet during training? Do you like any box squat variations, or you do like splits? What's your split squats? What do you recommend for that?
I would. So once you get that shape change, you can now go for exercises where you can. So first of all, you can wear an SI belt if that's possible, wrapping around the ilium, and then do the exercises. And once you've opened the outlet, next would be when you're doing any exercise, make sure your hip, knee, and foot are aligned when you're doing a bilateral stuff. So suppose you're doing a hex squat, suppose hex squat. Most bodybuilders, yeah, almost everyone will not have the space to keep their feet straight, hip, knee, foot in straight space. That's fine. Go slightly out. The closest space from midline where you can capture the inner half of the heel, ball of Victor, without losing the outer, and the kneecap, the patella should be in line with the second and third toe. You will see that alignment. When that alignment is there, hold on to the heel heaviness and do your squat. Same for split squat. Just make sure the front leg follows that, and that would be great. So if you follow that, you will be in a much better position. Your outlet will hold on to its openness up to a pretty good extent when you're upright and producing force into the ground.
And then if you're dealing with a closed off pelvic outlet, are you wanting your pelvic floor to be better at yielding or overcoming?
So when you are pretty closed here, it's a lot of overcoming stuff going on, and a lot of like in the posterior outlet there's a lot of overcoming. In the anterior outlet, it's slowly going towards yielding. So our goal is to get more overcoming on the anterior outlet so that organs can be pushed up, and more yielding in the posterior outlet so that you can relax and create some space and little bit of turn through the sacrum. So
Yeah, and I think that's important that a lot of people don't look at it as front to back when they just think of like a pelvic outlet. And so, do you like things like a yielding box squat if you're going to go in like a softer surface to try to get that posterior outlet to open a
outlet,
little
yeah,
bit?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, but sitting there too much would
yeah,
also reduce your ability to push off and come up. So there's a sweet spot that you
yeah.
have to manage.
I like the
Yeah.
move that I see you guys do. I see Sean do. A lot of people. I don't know if it's his thing, but where they do like it's kind of like a single clean, where you kind of go into the split and you're kind of decelerating, where you got the kettlebell and
Okay, with the kettlebell, right?
yeah,
With the
yeah,
kettlebell. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So Olympic lifts can be modified with kettlebells where you don't have to squeeze the scapula, so you can actually do
yeah,
the move this way. So you can train your internal organs. So you do a split squat drop catch or a heels elevated bilateral drop catch. So you rapidly jump down, being heel heavy. So when you do that, your guts will fall after some time. And when the guts drop, so you do not collapse. A lot of people who do not have enough space will end up like their knees collapse in. The moment the guts strike the pelvic floor, knees collapse in. The goal is not to do that. Hip, knee, foot aligned, heel heavy, come down first, guts touch, that's it. You hold on to it and then come back up.
yeah,
So that
exactly.
way you can actually not let your organs like make you collapse. So you hold your ground and then you come up. That's a great way to train.
Yeah, that being able to create that slight delay is just so important in
Yes.
so many things.
Yes.
And something you touched on, I just want to mention real quick, is you were talking about the foot position, which is super important because
Ah,
sometimes people watch my videos, and I'm a pretty like mobile bodybuilder. I'm a wide
ah,
ISA, so it's like my toes will be pretty straight. I'll be able to keep contact points. Whereas, a narrow, they don't have the same femur setup, or some people just have so much posterior compression. So, like, I have a really compressed narrow who I have to have like just look ridiculous to get the contact points. But like and then he feels tension good when he does that. So it's like, do what you got to do to get those contact points. Make it as tight as you can, but your look may be totally different than someone else's. So like you might have to go out a little wider to get the right contact
Yes,
points.
little word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then like something else we should mention too is like people creating false anchors. Like their butt is a big one of them, right? People will just clench their ass and instead of
Mm.
trying to get like real counter nutation or real just true hip extension. So in general, you would kind of be along the lines of telling people not to clench their butt during the workout typically.
Yeah. So suppose you are doing a squat, hex squat, or split squat. People have this tendency to lock out their knees and then squeeze their glutes at the top.
Yeah.
I tell them, stay as chill as possible in the glutes. You will push through the heels. Don't even focus on your quads or glutes or anything. Push through the heel, come up to the point where your knees are not locked out and your glutes are still chill, so that you feel as if you have come up pretty well, but your glutes are still relaxed. Like that is something that I use, like just short of extension and glute squeezing. So glutes have to be relaxed. So that is what I tell them. Like you don't have to totally extend your knees because that will only do this to the pelvis.
Yeah, like, and I have someone on like a 45-degree hyper. Like, I'm just looking at their ass, and I'm like, if I see he's clenching, like just chill, like just it'll do it on its own, like a little bit. You're fine. You don't have to
Yes,
think about
on
it.
its own. Yeah.
Just go to hip extension, and that's a big thing that I think a lot of girls do wrong. Like a lot of girls that train for their butt. Like I've never met a girl that was really into like the wellness category where they're all about the butt, where they don't have back and neck pain because they're training their glutes like 3 or 4 days a week, and like everything is just so compressive down there.
And a lot of women, especially in the fitness realm, fitness models, they have this huge exaggerated lumbar arch. You'll
Yeah,
see
that's what I'm saying. Wild.
there's a there's a booty gains on social media, but it's so if your lumbar arch is that bent inward, the glutes will look much bigger
Like having
in
high heels.
comparison to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that will look bigger, but your true outlet opening measure is when you are chill, relaxed, you have your back, your chest like kind of vertical. Now, what your glute size is, that's what denotes your pelvic outlet opening.
Yeah.
You can arch your back and make your glutes look bigger. It's an illusion. So,
Yeah, and what I see on these girls when they actually get lean and get into the contest, they get graded very highly. Like they get downgraded because they don't have like glute ham tie-ins. Because when you get lean and like you don't see that development, like with that position, you can make it look all nice and round, but you're not going to have that development. And for all the women's classes, every single class, that's a huge, huge thing. So I was wondering maybe we could talk a little bit about the population. So I'm sure you're like me. Like you get most people that come to you, they need expansion. Like I get most of my people are ADP compressed, and we're working on creating
yes.
expansion so we can move into. But then I do get the occasional person who's like, I've been trying the stuff I see and nothing's working. And then I see them and they're like fucking the lava lamp who's like just all over the place. And it's more about getting them to create a controlled compression gradient and giving them more of an anchor. And so I was wondering if maybe you could talk about this kind of population as well, some of the unique challenges that they face in ways that you like to work with them.
Um, People who have tried everything and they say it does not work.
Well, I'm talking about the kind
Um,
of slightly more hypermobile, the narrow who like
Hypermobile.
they think they need expansion maybe because they're having pain when really like one or two areas are pretty compressed and the rest is like they've got a lot of space. They can't create like a good angle. Like maybe they don't have their IOs and TAs and they're trying to use the trap, for the scapula.
Yeah. So hypermobile, I would not treat them any differently as than any other population. What I would do is, so what they're good at is they're great at orienting, like really, really good at orienting. If
Subtle.
you see, yes, so there are two kinds of population. If you're doing table tests, you will see there are two kinds of population. One, insane, exaggerated ER and IR measures because they're so good at moving on the table, compensating through the
Yeah.
spine in a very subtle way. They're very good at that. And there's the second population who are so stiff they can't even orient that way, like jammed up. They can't even orient through the spine anymore. So, so hypermobile, I would say, not very differently. Um, I would always aim for a good exhalation if they can pause
The exact,
because
yeah.
As it pauses, diaphragm domes, you will slowly start feeling this kicking in. And then can you hold on? So suppose you're doing supine, can you hold on to the contacts on the back and not lose it as you inhale? So that will give them chest and back expansion. And the obliques, I use TVAs will manage pressure internally for them. So that is something I would focus on. Pause would be very, very crucial
Oh yeah.
for those people.
Do you do any resisted breathing with this population? They're so bad at producing force. You know what I mean? Like if I ever had them back in the PR, I still do balloons sometimes, but back in the day, if I used to have them do balloons, it's like they can't fucking do it. Like they're puffing out and they
Mhm.
have like no ability. Whereas, a Y can be compressed as shit and they still get benefits from doing it, but they can actually create it. And that's a good, cool way to show them like how fucked up they are. They're like, I can't even blow up a fucking balloon. Like, what the fuck is wrong with me?
Uh, I have not used the balloon for a long, long time, but the pause usually does the job for me. The pause usually does the job for me.
Do you use any of the other
I
stuff? Are you a fan of they got like the tools, I think the little ball or anything you like to use any resisted breathing at all? I haven't lately at
no.
all, but I do think it has some cool stuff you can do with it sometimes.
Be- because they will end up orienting some way or the other if they're asked to force. So if you ask someone to, okay, get all the air out, they they might misunderstand it and they will end up squeezing
To their neck a
and
lot.
this 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 head getting forward. So I would rather treat them like anyone else and get as much outlet opening as possible and pause and inhale from there. That should do a good amount of job. Outlet opening is pretty
And yeah, this
important.
this
I think
population is pretty much always the narrow, the counter nutated, the posterior compressed. So
yes.
that's really true. Yeah, like a lot of what I'll do is the getting them to decelerate is a little bit more important for them. I think it's important for
Mm,
everybody, but especially if you're hypermobile. And then like you say in the isometrics. So I might have them do a little bit more like compressive isometrics. Maybe it's like a short lever side plank, whereas for I might do, more of a low oblique set for expansion for someone who's a little more compressed, depending on what the presentation is. So I like to do like split squat holds for that population is so
mm,
brutal. Having them try to get to like 90s and have them just hold that, like putting them where they're not good at. I think that's
mm.
really beneficial as well because that population I feel bad for because it's harder for them because they do so much subtle shit that they can't even necessarily be aware of. Where
Uh,
if I do something like I can tell like, oh, I fucked that up. I did that a little bit. Where for them they just have almost so many options in some ways they can't produce that grounding force. So do you think for this population, like during the gym, it's better to like put them like anchored on machines where they can like really like find their grounding?
yeah, I would say yes. If they have a problem, like you said, they don't even know what they're doing. If that is the issue, constraints would be great. So suppose instead of overhead pressing standing, they can do it seated uh, in an incline bench with the head point of contact, posterior thorax, SI joint, and maybe the legs on something so that they can the force into the ground through the foot can keep them grounded and not letting them do this. They'll immediately do this.
Yeah.
So having those references as much as possible in any exercise that you do, if you are doing mm, if it is possible seated with posterior references. Hex squat is great
Yeah.
because those machines have those references there. Maybe leg press machine is also great. Foot points of contact extremely important when producing force into the ground. They have to be aware that they are producing through the inner half of the heel and they're not getting pushed forward. Like when they're doing leg press or when they're doing anything lower body, make sure it's coming through this, like pressing really through this and not rolling forward. They have to be aware that you're not going towards your toes, heel, heel, heel all the time. So that keeps them grounded.
Yeah. And
But yeah, supine hook lying press, another way. Supine hook lying pressing, posterior references so that they don't end up uh, orienting in a way that you don't want them to.
yeah.
So grounding instead of bench.
I like the pendulum for them too more than I do for the Ys. It kind of locks them in like a little kind of almost like a fake IR range that they can maintain without having to have like true ability to IR that good. And I mean wides do it too. They kind of bear down on the abs, but the compressed narrows are the ones who really tend to like close down the sternum and like
Yes, yes,
kind of like
yes.
shorten their abs. And I think ab
Mm,
training is something that a lot of people kind of do I wouldn't say incorrectly necessarily, but they don't maybe do it like as like for the rest of their abs. They really just focus on like rectus abs a lot of times and creating that
Ah, yes.
compression. So from your perspective, I'm curious because people think of alternation, they don't really realize that that comes into play with the abs as well. Like there's a gait involved with everything. And so what do you think are some common maybe mistakes, but maybe things that people overdo when it comes to ab training and some other ways that they could train abs that would help help them with getting, abs, but also help them with their propulsive cycle and movement options.
So a lot of people, athletic gen pop and the bodybuilders whom I train, they ask, what should I do for abs? The thing is, if you have done all your upper and lower body without losing the stack, like without doing this or without crunching and being upright and through the correct foot pressure, you have already trained your abs up to a pretty good extent because that is what kept your pelvis and the rib cage above each other and not do this or bend down. So your IS and TBAs are already worked. If you can, if you want to do it isolated, great. There are high obliques, low obliques. You can definitely go for that. But the goal eventually would be not to side bend or squeeze anything, to be relaxed in a position without doing this. So if you can be relaxed, good exhale, pause, and inhale, abs have done the job.
You're talking
The
about from like
abs
a
have
low
already
oblique?
low oblique, yeah.
Yeah. And so while we're on the low oblique, when you do the low oblique, what are you doing it for mainly? Like, what's your, because I've had a lot of different mentors. There's a lot of the nuances of this are so wild, right? So when you do the low oblique, you're just kind of neutral. You're not pushing or you're not yielding. You're kind of just hanging out there.
Yeah, so depending on how you're trying to implement it, but if I, so suppose for an example, left low oblique, right leg up, left leg down, low oblique, I'm just sinking into the left side and I will be just pushing through the right foot forward so that I can turn into the left side. Left back opens up, right chest opens up. The turn happens that way. So I'm not pushing, I'm just pushing enough where I do not end up doing this. Once you're here, relax, it should be relaxed. If you have to push too far with force, that is not for you yet. You have to, this should feel relaxed. This should not feel like, oh my God, it's such a task to do this. If that is, don't do that. So it should feel relaxed and inhaling, turning to the left. That should be that for you.
Um, did you do DNS at all before you got into the PRI stuff, or you never did DNS?
No,
Just curious.
no, no, yes.
I mean, it's not the same stuff, but there's a little crossover. I think they're a little heavy on the developmental stuff. But so, do you think that like any wides or narrows, they don't need to worry about training their abs differently necessarily?
Differently, I don't think so because if you can manage your ribcage pelvis positioning in upper and lower body exercises, something very differently, I would say in breathing drills, wides have a harder time exhaling, closing the ribs. Narrows have a hard time inflating their ribs. So that's probably the only big difference. Other than that, it's not like some magical position will make wides so much better than the narrows or vice versa. I don't think so, as per my experience.
Yeah, I don't have any serious thoughts on it, but I'm always just curious because, the wides, a lot of times they'll have a little bit more like it starts grabbing because they're pulling away, but it's not as concentrically oriented position as the narrows start off with. Um, when you are working with the wides and the narrows, do you have them breathe different? Since you're talking about like they have a little different things going on. Like how do you recommend breathing for a wide versus a narrow?
Yeah, so the difference that I've seen is in wides can be hard in supine, like really, because they have this huge mountain rising up with this angle. So, getting them to supine can be a work, can be good amount of work before getting them into supine for them to be able to close the IS a bit and then inhale from there. It can be work. So side lying and seated Great for wides. Great for wides. Like you do a sideline, maybe keep thick towels or something around the flare area where it flares like really big and hard. Keep there on sideline so that air can be pushed back there. So sideline a lot, seated works great with wides. With narrows you can progress to supine pretty fast. This is what I've
Yeah.
seen. Some of the narrows can have a hard time in sideline because they're
Yeah.
so compressed. Like it's like no distance,
Yeah.
nothing here. So that can be hard. So seated is again once again a pretty good position. Um, so prone on an ab pad,
Yeah.
RX pad, ab pad can be great for narrows, and then supine. But yeah, with wides, supine, if they can do a supine well, oh my God, like that guy has reached enlightenment.
It- do real quick, going back to the closed off pelvic outlet, do you have these people avoid like a 90-90 positions, or do you think they can still utilize it if they're like do it a specific way?
Um, Usually, if you're that compressed at the back of the pelvis, it will be very hard for that person to capture the foot points of contact. I will just see if you can capture the foot points of contact because a lot of people in 1990, it's hard.
Yeah.
Even in hook line, it's hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, I
So
gotta use
I
wedges
would,
usually for the hook line. I'll give them like a pretty good inverted wedge.
yes,
Yeah.
wedges can work to get the positioning. And then maybe 1990 is actually a hard one. But
Yeah.
what you can do on the wall, feet out like this, and capturing the foot points of contact where
Yeah.
your hip, knee, feet are aligned. That can be done.
There's probably better options though, right? That's something that I do a lot is I do a lot of 90-90, but I don't really have that bad of a lower posterior compression. So again, like a lot of people see my stuff and like they'll try to recreate. I'm like, it might not be quite where you're ready. And then you're talking about the narrows. One thing I noticed on their side too is they're a lot more likely to just collapse in on themselves, right? Like they can like
Oh yeah.
sunk in where wide can't really do that as well. Do you have them actually like exhale differently?
Yes. So narrows would be because they might if they do they might end up squeezing the rectus. So because it's this, the narrower one gets, even a little force will make them
Yeah.
this. So better. Wides,
Yeah.
blowing a candle because the wider one gets, the angle is so far. So in order to get some movement, little bit, of course, it's not
Yeah.
force compared to the narrow. This is a little bit of more force so that they can get little bit of movement exhalation because they have a hard time closing their ISA and that becomes a problem with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you're changing the physics of what's going on in your body. That's why you're kind of like open your mouth wider if you're narrow and vice versa if you're wider. Um, Something I was curious about from an ECM lens, I've always kind of thought about like what is happening during a pump. Like it's like that's like the best thing for like a bodybuilder is just to feel like that swelling and feel like that like you're actually getting some shit done. But I haven't been able to conceptualize like what is actually going on. Like I don't know if it's like a localized expansion strategy or if it's like a stiffness that creates a constraint from compression. So I mean, have you ever thought about that? Do you have any insights on what is actually happening
I
during the pump? Is it
I think
useful reorganization stimulus or just like a temporary like hydraulic congestion, you know?
I would say it is concentric orientation going on. I think it will be compression in that area, but Greg in our amp team, Greg Hawthorne, he's a real nerd about it. He knows like things to that level, like actin myosin level, everything that is going on. So I think he would be a much better resource for that. I've not thought that deep about it. What I feel is that you're creating enough compression here, but it's not enough uh, because you lose the pump again as the day goes by. So it comes back to its concentric, comes back to its eccentric because your bone is also like you're not like you're doing a lot of this and then now you're more relaxed, so it gets back to its eccentric uh, the previous state. But yeah, I have not thought that much about what's going in, but I would say concentric orientation going on, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just like a
compression.
weird to think about because you're like expanding, but I'm assuming that's like compression, like that's driving
Okay,
that.
now that you talk about it, do you see bodybuilders who cannot like extend their elbows totally? Like it's always slightly flexed all the time and they cannot extend it. Have you seen
Yeah, sometimes I
something
see
like
that. I see that more with Gen Pop, but I do see that. Yeah, with bodybuilders too.
that? Okay. Like what I think is like what you're doing is creating elbow flexion. So you're creating twist in the bones as well as you over time that twist. So you're biasing towards extension flexion a lot. Over time, that will change the shape of the bones, and that will stop you from if this is my today's day one
Yeah,
and I lift a lot of bicep curls over time, this will end up being my resting stone. Rather
yeah,
than this will be my resting tone because of the bony bands that I've created with repeated flexion with load. Bones have changed shape and now it cannot go back to its extended state. That's what I feel happens. Bony shape changes.
yeah. It's stuff that doesn't matter, but it's stuff that's cool to think about.
Yeah.
Talking about bony shape changes, you got me thinking. Is like something that we deal with all the time. Is this tibia where they got the femur that's
Yes.
kind of more like distally IR'd into it.
Yeah.
What is your strategies to help manage that? Because that's something I see all the time. I'm just curious what you do.
I would say I approach it from the total body things. First of all, outlet needs to be open. If the outlet is open, a lot of problems from the base gets solved. So outlet opening first. Getting the opening here is also pretty crucial. This opening. Now, if you have an outlet opened, you do the self mobilization that we have discussed earlier. And now, if you do any drill with the hip, knee, and foot in line with the heel heaviness and the toes are relaxed, the proximal tibia will slowly start to IR as you get more heavier and heavier in the heel and your shin moves over the foot, whether it's squat, split squat, anything that you do, the shin will IR because now you have created change here and your foot contacts are there. So both sides are anchored. Now the tibia has to change shape. The moment you lose heel heaviness, go towards the forefoot, everything tibia will start to external rotate. But because the constraint here is lost, you have to like from the top, from the bottom, hold on, and now let your shin go over the foot while you keep this opening and heel heaviness, and your tibia will IR from there.
Yeah,
It has
because
to.
I feel like people they kind of I don't know, they almost underestimate how much bones can change, because you can create
Oh
these actual bends in
yeah.
them. So, but you can change it back, right? Like how long of a process do you think that could take, if someone's trying to reverse that and kind of like reshape their bones?
Okay. So depend Gen. I would say Gen Pop, who are the most. Let me talk about like the picture perfect sin. The most sedentary people will have an easier time because you're not creating any interferences. If you're just doing the homework, best.
Yeah.
Like just changing shape, best because you're not running, which like pushes your center of gravity forward over and over again fast. You're not lifting with the most of the people who lift weights in the gym forward on the toes, not managing internal pressure. So if you're not doing anything and just focusing on this, perfect, it will be much easier. But this is not the reality. A lot of people have physical activity goals and do a lot of things, but if you are a bodybuilder or powerlifter who has changed the shape of the bones so much, um, like little bit, like your expectations should be like little bit of changes should be good because you already your muscles have occupied a lot of space in the body changing the shape of the bones. So if you're a bodybuilder, little bit of change would be fine. You should be happy with that. If you're a gen pop, there's a lot of room if you just do the work, and even your activities that you do in the gym, if it is in line in sync with this bone shape changing thing, that should be in 3 to 6 months should be a good time frame to see decent changes happening. Of course, over 2 years, 3 years, that will be
Yeah.
like even better. even better.
That's what I was making sure I wasn't doing something wrong. It's like I don't see it in less than 3 months ever. It's like it's for bodybuilders. It's gonna
Impossible. Yeah, bony shape change take a lot of
yeah.
time.
Do you do
But
anything
bodybuilders,
local?
it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, especially like you said, the interference. I mean, I have a couple people that are really aware, but most people think they're aware and they're just not, like because it's kind of like it's almost an all or nothing thing to a certain extent. It's like you
Yeah,
got the context or you don't. Um,
yeah.
do you do anything local? Like, do you do any like hill slides from hook line or anything if you're trying to line that up at all, or you just kind of let the pelvis and shape change the femur and so on?
I didn't get you like hook line.
Like a hook line heel slide or something where you're just trying to kind of line up your femur and your tibia a little bit more, or even the old FRC just doing tibia IR or something.
No,
Yeah, just keep it
nothing
from
like that. Nothing like that.
nice.
Just change the shape of the ribs, change the shape of the pelvis, and some of the foot drills. Like if you can um, help the foot spread by opening this space, whether it's a lacrosse ball or tennis ball, opening this space, it will help to capture the inner heel much better and ball of big toe much better if you open this space. So your foot on top of it, and you stand or sit and imagine your body weight sinking through the ball to the foot. So that can help. Rest, do the drills with the hip knee foot alignment, and do not lose your bony contacts when you inhale. Most important, rest will be taken care of. Like it will happen.
What I
Don't
noticed
worry.
too, the more higher level people like come in contact with that do the model, it's like their bag of tricks is a little bit smaller because they can be because you can really like hone in on the stuff from like a deeper level, getting the kind of more foundational things fixed. So it's like I've worked with people who are like have like 20 different things they can do for every presentation, but like yeah, as I do this longer and longer, I've only been doing
Okay.
this for almost 6 years now. It's like I can see the simplicity and just that's why I like what you guys post because you guys will post like a drill and like break down like all the nuances of it because
Yeah.
you could do like a cross connect with totally different intents and you could be making like totally different changes to your body if you have your foot pressure a little different or
Yes.
you just
Yes.
doing a little bit different stuff as far as that. So I think that as you get deeper into this, you kind of it almost makes it simpler because you can know the nuances a little bit better.
And it does not even make sense to like. Yes, theoretically speaking, if you're looking at the body uh, as a scientist, then yes, there are 100 different drills that you can do for okay proximal femur, for distal femur, for proximal tibia. For every end of the bone you can create a new mobility drill. That's fine, that's great, but the biggest bang for your buck will be very few which you can do it with everyone and it gives you incredible results. Anything hard on the bone will change the shape of the bone, the first rule. And if done for a long period of time, it will change the shape of the bone. So sit bone opening and ironing the ilium inside lying are huge for me because I know if I use something hard, it will give me the results. In most since I don't have to do any localized like distal femur and proximal tibia drill, that will take care of me. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think that people get a little obsessive compulsive sometimes too, or they want to change it's like a little faster than what they think. With this population, a lot of times what I'll do is like you're saying is like people underestimate like how much you can change just by doing so little. Like you could do like a quarter of a
yes,
split squat and drive pressure and like give yourself support. And like especially with like my narrows and stuff, I'll have them do that. And like we have a full pelvis oriented, we open up so much space where it's like all we're doing is learning how to compress into the ground, essentially like do an axial
yes,
spiral. Um,
yeah.
let's switch. I wanted to switch it for just a second, and then we'll come back to some bodybuilding stuff. Have you seen
Yeah.
some of this shit that's going around with these young kids that are like breaking their jaws and doing this looksmaxing thing? You don't know what I'm talking about at all? You haven't seen this? It's the weirdest shit. It's
No,
like
I've
really,
not seen.
it's really popular. These kids are doing what's called looksmaxing. They're like taking all these drugs and doing all kinds of like they'll take like meth and stuff, but they're like breaking their jaws with little hammers because it like gives them like a better better structure. So I was wondering like you haven't heard of that at all. They're trying to do it to improve facial aesthetics. Like what do you think is going to happen with that? And what are there some ways to improve facial aesthetics without breaking your jaw?
Without breaking your own bones. Okay. Facial aesthetics, jawline is probably the biggest thing that comes into mind when people say about aesthetics. So you want your jawline to be slightly protruded. You don't want to be retruded. If you see someone retruded, there's this airway space lacking. So when the chin gets too close to the throat, it's lack of opening for the airway. So when everything gets pushed forward, rib cage, pelvis, cervical spine, cranium. So cranium gets forward relative to that, the mandible goes back. And that creates a lot of jaw tension for a lot of people, cervicogenic headaches, temporal headaches. So if you want aesthetics, you'll have to take things back in space, cranium, rib cage, pelvis, so that you can slowly get this out. Like all these people with forward head. So it's an airway problem. If you can fill yourself up with air, you will look much more aesthetic. Air in the lungs will make you look like, oh, okay, it's dude's big. So, and the jaw goes forward. That will be the biggest thing. And it also helps you in sleeping well.
Oh yeah,
The
huge.
sleep is,
And if we look in like the TMCC stuff, there's some asymmetry stuff that'll get fixed as well if you're like really OCD about it. But
yes.
yeah, I have a client who's got severe pectus, like really, really bad pectus. And like when we fix a lot of
Mm.
the stuff, like you can see his face like literally change. Like instead
Yeah.
of being a neck, like I'm like, dude, you look so much fucking better. You got some jaws now. He's not a big, not a fat guy at all, but he's got that kind of almost the
Uh,
fat looking face because of that. And like
yeah, exactly.
it's so dramatic. I got to take a picture of him before and after because I'm like, it's a huge
Yeah, you
difference.
should.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
should.
That's
People
pretty
who
big.
think that this stuff does not work, compression expand does not work, like you, it has
Yeah.
proof, like this works.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, that'll give you a lot of confidence. Real quick, while we're on pectus, I have a big video. I've been getting shit on. I've been working on this video for a while. I haven't put it out yet. Do you have any specific treatments or anything you like to deal with people that do have pretty bad pectus excavatum?
Oh, for that is something. Okay, uh, the degree to which you can make changes, of course, varies. But few things that will 100% definitely help is if the person can use an SI belt on a regular basis. That would be very helpful.
Do you like the
Um,
breath belt at all? You ever use that? Are you a fan of the breath belt?
no, it's I tell my clients to get that Cerola belt, I think. But so anything that you get and can wrap around the pelvis, I think lever belt is also something which is getting
Yeah,
popular.
yeah.
Yeah, so that can also be used, but the main intention is to get the ilium, the SIS to come closer to each other. So if that can be done, because if the belt width is too much, the amount of pressure it can produce is it decreases with the amount of width. So you
Okay.
need something which is like less width so that
Oh
it
yeah.
can provide more pressure. So around the ilium, bringing the ASIS closer, that is something that will help the pectus excavatum people a lot. Um, Prone breathing on an app pad where the ASIS is anchored on the top of an app pad, that can help them a lot.
Like a press up kind
Outlet,
of
yes. Not even
just
pressing
just
up,
just
just
chilling.
just just chilling out.
Yeah.
Let air do the job. Next would be keeping the outlet open is very, very, very crucial for those people. It's very easy. Like this, it has a default setting of going here. So when this happens, the glutes also start squeezing. The more you can keep your glutes open, the more relaxed this area will be. So
Yeah, they
those things.
and depending on how bad it is, you can make really, I mean, if it's minor, you can kind of get rid of it. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's severe, it's
Yeah.
just something you're going to manage a little bit, but it's gotten way better with my
Yeah.
guy.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, so let's go back to bodybuilder stuff real quick. So, probably the main thing I work with is people that are like really asymmetrical, and that can be not good if you're a bodybuilder, not as big of a deal if you're just a normal person. But what like when is it something to start worrying about, and when is asymmetry okay from your perspective?
Asymmetry with bodybuilders, I think it's a big deal, right? Whether you winning or losing a competition, it will depend on that. So I think they should be the ones aesthetic. It's all about aesthetic. So they should be the ones worrying about asymmetry the most probably. So I would say as much as possible, train in a way so that you can keep your right side slightly more open. If you can, so it does not have to be perfect. Imagine this is a left foot, but imagine it's a right foot. If your weight is like constantly out here on the right foot, on the outside, that will make it really hard for your body to manage the asymmetry and keep some space on the left side. If you can, through the SI belt or outlet opening or breathing drills, keep your right side slightly more expanded so that your weight can shift from the outside to slightly inside. Does not have to be perfect like this. Doesn't have to be. But the more you can hold on and bring your internal rotation from the outside to inside, that would create massive changes. Massive changes. Someone who is like rolled out on the right foot will have a way harder time to manage asymmetry, and the left and right will start to look much weird. Versus someone who, on a consistent basis, is keeping the right side open and training in a way so that the right side can hold on to the foot contacts up to a good extent, that will slowly shift the axial skeleton towards the center, and that will help manage the asymmetry up to a pretty good extent. So this space, yeah, so it's the right side. These two spaces are very important. The more you can keep this open, use hard surface, and the more you can keep this open, that would be great. Like you sit on a lacrosse ball or a mini roller or something like this, and then you slide down and create space here. If you can do this and this every day, like it's a ritual, will be way better at managing the asymmetry and making the right and left look pretty similar. Of course, it will never be 50-50 impossible, but as much as possible,
Yes.
hold on to the right side.
Yes, yeah, this sometimes what I'll do when I'm warming up is, and even on a work set, sometimes it's weird, but I don't have my people do it normally, but sometimes I have them do similar stuff. It's like I'll do exactly what you're saying. I'll have my right foot a little bit turned out relative to my left, and sometimes I bring it back just a tiny bit, a little more like late propulsive representation versus the left, and like sometimes if I'm not like off, I can do that, and that can fix up all my measurements where I'm in a good spot to like do the work that I need to do. And sometimes that's all the shift that I need. And sometimes I'll load heavy
Hmm.
that way. What are your thoughts on doing actually like kind of like your work sets slightly asymmetrical?
Yes. If you're doing split squats, then ipsilateral load on the right side, right foot forward, and
You,
contra, like both the sets,
all
left
right.
and right hand is holding the weight. That helps a lot.
Yeah. Or you can do
Being
back
really
foot elevated
focused.
too. Yeah.
Front foot elevated would be
But
great.
for both?
I would say yes, because you want the right side to expand as well and hold on to the foot measure. Just holding on to the foot measures on the right side will square up the pelvis, will
Yeah.
square up the pelvis up to a very good extent. But that's the problem. A lot of people cannot hold on to that. And for that, a lot of opening self mobilization probably have to be done in order
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, but if you can hold on to the right side, if you're doing hex squat, even bilateral, feet out, capturing the context, be mindful of the right foot.
Yeah.
It should not roll like this. It should be this, like this. If you can hold this in this space up to a very good extent, the problem will be solved.
Yeah, a lot of what you can do is like once you know your issues and like where you tend to compensate to, you can just isometrically kind of fight it. Like if I'm doing like a heavy hack squat, for me, I tend to get buried into my right side and I'll like
Mhm.
turn into there. If I kind of stay inner heel and first med head, but maybe a little more first med head on my left, I'm just digging that inner heel. That will like kind of fight that counter turn that I'm doing. I'm not moving or anything. It's just something where I'm just applying a little bit of
Mhm.
pressure and I'll feel like real even activation. Whereas if I just let it go a little bit, I'll feel a little bit different
Ah,
stuff. So when you get to know like your own stuff, you can address a lot of your issues during the actual workout. Like you need to do some stuff to open probably, but you can continue it through your workout. A lot of people think they need to do like
yes.
an hour of mobility work. That's not usually necessary.
No. Being really aware of your foot context can change the game.
Yeah.
Like really aware.
Um, if bodybuilders like had a really good grasp of this model and like really understood it and wanted to apply it, well, are there any exercises you would think that they would want to take away? And then what exercises do you think probably are not really beneficial for the non-bodybuilding population?
for non-bodybuilding population, what exercises are not beneficial? I recently got a lot of hate on for this for barbell back squat. Yeah, barbell back squat not needed. What do normal population want? Usually to look good aesthetically, to feel good, and to move well and not be in like constant soreness or pain outside the gym. You want your gym to help you to get like really good in your life after the gym. Like I feel really good doing those movements, doing the gym program, and that's what a gen pop should strive towards. Now the problem becomes when a lot of inspiration for gen pop is being drawn from bodybuilding and powerlifting. That can become a problem. They have to understand that those two people, those two populations are athletes working on their sport. For Gen Pop, I would say unnecessary would be barbell back squat. Like on the bench press. Like if there is an alternative, get into supine hook lying and press with the dumbbells.
I mean, even for
No problem.
bodybuilders, I don't think they need a bench press either.
Yeah. So, this upright rows, uh, Gen Pop does not need. Heavy shrugs, this not needed.
How would you
This
recommend
one,
bodybuilders train shrugging or train the traps?
this looks good. Like it looks good on you, so great, but uh, comes at a cost. You know that more
Do you,
than
you,
anyone.
you like them
So,
to do like more retraction with their elevation, or how can they hit it a little bit?
uh, with bodybuilders, I wouldn't really comment because their sport needs probably every muscle to be developed. So I would say whatever they're doing is great, but Gen Pop,
Well,
no.
a lot of bodybuilders just have traps because they fucking take over on everything. But I've never been a huge fan of just straight elevation. You know, I don't feel like that's like the best. I always want to, if I am doing traps, kind of get a little bit of retraction with it.
Could be. Uh, uh, yeah, I think if if a trap bar is available to you, you don't have to do the conventional deadlift. Gen Pop,
Oh yeah.
maybe for bodybuilder as well.
Again, that's another
What?
not a bodybuilding move, really. People do it, but it's like it's not
Yeah.
really helping us necessarily.
Um. Yeah. What else comes to this heavy glute bridge and hip thrust stuff.
Yeah,
Like
heavy.
that's
Yeah, yeah. That's the exactly here you're going. I see this all the time.
everything squeezing the pelvic outlet, and then they start having L5S1 pelvic floor issues. Like not needed. Like you can make your glutes look bigger just by changing the shape of your pelvis. And leg workout, squat, hex squat, split squat, safety bar squat, leg press. So many options, so many options. You don't have to worry about this exercise. He's saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's bad. There are consequences to every exercise that you do. So, what else does come to my mind? Uh, oh, yes. Um, I've seen recently there's a huge wave of Gen Pop going to the gym. There's a group fitness class and a lot of Olympic movements like snatch, like that. Like you're a Gen Pop. Why are you snatching?
That was
I mean,
CrossFit.
they like
Yeah.
it. Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're liking it. It feels good, but then you see they have no control. Like at the top, they're like, turning like this. They're unable to get it there, or even like this. What is that called? Clean? Yeah,
Yeah.
they're unable. Like no, not enough pump handle. Dropping, arm dropping like this. Not needed. All this stuff are not needed.
What do you think about Jefferson curls? There's a huge push online to like some people are really fan of doing it really heavy, and some people do it just for mobility. I think a lot of it depends on your archetype, right? Like certain pelvic positions don't do that as well. Like wides don't tend to be able to do that quite as well. What are your thoughts on the Jefferson curl, especially loading it?
Even if, I would say even narrows, if they try to do it, I've seen the position. It's like
Yeah.
you're here and then you're just bending. So it's not a great outlet opening drill.
Oh no,
It's
no.
outlet closed and just bending from the spine. Now, okay, now that you say this, a lot of people load it. and nothing happens to them. And then, so let me get to the root of this. In every animal species that we see, every animal species, there's this elite 5-10% who can get away with anything. Then there's a huge middle population. And then there's this 10-15% who are pretty sensitive, who cannot handle things well for every animal species. Okay, same for us, same for the humans. And people who are loading the shit out of weird looking exercises in the gym, they tend to say, like, anyone who says the opposite or does the opposite is just fragile and weak and blah blah blah. You can get away with it. I know the kind of people I am seeing on a day-to-day basis. This is, if they can avoid it, that's better. There are way better uh, things to do than Jefferson curls. And then loading it heavy. If you can get away with it, great. Up to what extent? I don't know. But is it damn good? I don't think so. I don't think so. It is a damn good exercise. Well, what are your views?
I mean, I tried to get into it and more for like spinal segmentation for mobility, but anytime I try to load it, it just doesn't feel right. And I think a lot of it is because my compensations, I'm a more of a wide, so I'm gonna have more wide compensations, and that's gonna just make it a little harder for me just to go from the spine like the way like a narrow could. Anytime you see someone doing like heavy Jefferson, is usually the compressed narrow kind of archetype where they can do that through their spine and have a lot of like ability to almost be like hypermobile through a couple of segments. So I'm not a fan of
Yeah.
loading it really heavy personally. I mean, some people do it great, and if they get good results, but I think like if you wanted to do it, it would be more of a mobility thing. But I kind of don't fuck with Jeffersons right now personally. I mean, I've tried and I've always tweaked something. Anytime I've tried to do it, I've maybe been good for
Yeah.
a couple weeks, and then when I get into it, like, and I don't tweak myself doing anything. And so it's like okay, why am I gonna do this one thing that's supposed to be good, but it kind of fucks me up sometimes when I actually try to load it. So yeah, I'm not a big fan.
There's one more move, right? There's a lot of moves, but there's one more, some knees over toes or something, where you're on your ball of toes
Oh,
and
like a
just
sissy
moving your knee. Could be.
where you're like just leaning back.
Yeah, yeah. Or the knees over toes thing. Um, I've seen the movements. Not for everyone. Not for everyone. Some people get away with things and then they paint the world as, oh, you guys are
Yeah.
so fragile. So, like, what are you going to do with your strength? Are you serving the army or something? Like, or coming as coming, like benefiting your country in any way
Right.
other than you being a person? Like what? Like what's? Don't be so cocky. So,
That's
but
funny.
I feel there are so many movements that can be done pretty well safely, producing force into the ground, keeping the outlet open, keeping the rib cage open, which will be beneficial for the jet pop. Um, in the long run, or even bodybuilders, they can use it as like exercise movements and do it and feel damn good in their bodies, like you also do it with them, and they feel really good. So yeah.
Yeah. I'll do the move that I think Zach came up with it sometimes where like I have my heels up and like I'm maybe hanging in kind of like a Jefferson position with like a light kettlebell and inhaling, feet going to the inner heels, exhaling. I'm sorry, opposite of that, inhaling feet going to the outer heels, exhaling feet go to the inner heels. Something he did to try to break up the pelvics a little bit. You haven't seen that one? Yeah, that was
No,
one of his.
sorry.
That's the only way I really hang out in that position, and that can that'll help someone's like toe touch a lot. Obviously, you're just kind of hanging down there, but yeah, I don't like to load it. I'm
Yeah.
going to look at a couple questions real quick. I don't know if we got any
Yeah.
good ones. I didn't really look at a ton of them. I mean, sometimes I get great questions. Sometimes it's a little bit of a mixed bag. So let's see what we got. I mean, I'm really curious to see the numbers on this podcast because, a lot of my people are really into this. And so I'm curious to see what we end up doing as far as views. Um, have you done many podcasts?
I've done earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what do we got? Wow, this dude asked like 20 questions. I can't get all yours. Okay. All right, so this one we already covered pretty good. Any daily drills or breathing drills he recommends, best bang for your buck. So I think like you talked about, you kind of it's good to know your structure and your limitations, but for wides, sideline is pretty much going to be the most money position you could start in. I mean, usually
Absolutely.
after sideline, if they're not so compressed, sometimes I will have that population go to 90. What's your next move after sideline?
I would say first seated to open the outlet,
Okay,
and
yeah,
then
yeah. So not short seated, just seated.
short, like hips slightly
Okay, so
lower
short.
than the knee.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that you can get the outlet to open. Then sideline would be great. And then if progressively over the weeks they can get into a good shape, then maybe supine would suit them if they can get it down, if they can get the reps down.
Yeah, and that's the key. And then, a lot of times for them, sometimes they even have them hold like little weights, light weights as they're pushing, just to kind of create that kind of counterforce going back and let them like feel it. Because the bodybuilders, sometimes they gotta like feel something to connect to it, like
Feel the, yeah.
like I feel like that really helps them versus the regular population. And then for the narrows, well, I like hook line. What did you say to start with the narrows? Is your go-to?
I would go with the same stuff,
Hook line and
outlet
prone.
stuff. Yeah, prone would be great. Prone before supine works great.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
get enough back expansion and front expansion, and then you get to supine. Supine gets much easier.
Yeah, and then you use something just to get the pubic symphysis contact, right? Like an RX pad or two with if they're in prone.
Yeah, like the ASIS being blocked.
Yeah, okay. And so yeah, I see a lot of people put the pads up a little high, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, depending on depending on the person, but the biggest goal is to block the ASIS. That's it, so
Yeah,
that the pelvis does not anteriorly orient. So
yeah. Um, how do you, this is interesting because I mean, this is something that when you know the model, I don't know if this is a question that you ask, but how do you apply the model when there are physical limitations like FAI? What would be your response to that?
impingement, ACW
Yeah.
impingement, right?
Yeah.
Hmm. I mean, nothing different.
Yeah.
I don't do anything.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, I mean,
that's
people.
what we're fixing.
Yeah, exactly. Clients tell me, should I send you my MRI? I mean, you
Yeah.
can send
I
it, but
tell
it
them
does not
don't
feel.
fucking send me your back x-rays. Don't send me anything really. Like, especially if it's a
It doesn't
chronic
feel
long
good.
thing. Like if you have something acute and you fucked up, like maybe go get it checked out. But yeah, I'm the exact same.
Yeah,
Like I don't need to see I put like give me your history and anything I need to know on like my consults and like I'll look at it because how they feel matters, but I don't really fucking do anything different. It doesn't take anything
yeah,
and very rarely does that change something.
yeah. I mean, recently I've been getting a lot of clients who get anxious even just lying down and doing a breathing drill. They get anxious. They have past memories attached of their flare ups, and they get anxious just doing that. And yeah, those are the clients who need like really softer approach and gentler approach. Like even breathing gives them anxiety. Like, okay, just stick to nasal. That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
just nasal both ways. Yeah. Do you do like Zach? Zach was telling me that a lot of times for some of this population too, he'll do partial inhales, like fill it up a
Oh,
little bit
that is
each
something that
time.
I've not tried yet. I will have to try it.
It's pretty
I
cool.
think
It
I
was
watched a video
interesting.
of yours with Zach recently. Oh, sorry, the podcast that you did with Zach. I watched it yesterday, maybe.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
I think he was talking about it.
Yeah, yeah. That was the last one he talked about that. I went out and saw him right after that in person, and
Oh,
just took his class just to see kind of like how he taught it and what it was. It was funny because like most people in there are just trainers who had no exposure, and obviously that's kind of more of like an introduction. So like I'm in there just trying to be quiet because I'm trying not to answer. Everyone's like, my group's like, "Can you just do our whole thing for me?" I'm like, "No." Like, I wanted to see how he presented it, and it was really good. His course is great. I think if you guys are looking for an introduction, I think your guys' coursework is great too. Yours is like maybe a little more clinical, so you got to really like be into it and like
yeah,
want to
pretty
do it.
much
Like
12
his
basics,
is a
right?
little bit more basic, yeah, just kind of an
Hmm.
introduction. Um, I don't know if we can answer that. What are your thoughts on this? Please go into more detail, like retroversion of the glenohumeral joint and its varying causes. Well, some of that's going to be structural. How to treat it? How much should the humerus be in internal, externally rotated while doing isolation movements of the pecs, triceps, and delts? So some people think a lot about this kind of stuff. That's stuff that I don't necessarily think about
I have
actively.
I have not really thought about it much. I would say uh, how I deal with things is I just want to see a good ribcage shape, pelvis shape, and if your arm should not be doing too much of this and too much of this. There's always a sweet spot. So everywhere, whether it's ribcage, this is bad, this is bad, this is where you get motion. So this or this, this does
Yeah.
not really work. So keep it in a space where you are chill. If you're having problems with your shoulders, do your lifts with palms facing each other, whether it's
Yeah.
pressing, rowing. That that should be fine. That should be fine.
Yeah, and I used to notice before I kind of fixed my shit is like I would have one humorist that want to like ER while the other would be trying to IR, and I had no idea why. And it's like you can't necessarily like fix it, like it's a positional thing. So if you try too hard to
Yeah,
like do
yeah.
something while you're doing it, you're gonna throw something off there too. So yeah, it all comes down to the same shit. You know what I mean? Like get
Same
your
here.
rib
Like
cage.
it fix the rib cage. Yeah, the orientation of the rib cage and pelvis, and things will
Yeah, the
take care of
shape
itself.
changes like everything. Um,
Yeah,
And one thing you're talking about, like the sweet spot, I think that that's something that people don't take into account in bodybuilding at all. Like everything's got to be so extreme. Like for like rows, for example, like so many times when I have people rowing, I'm like, just row less. Like you don't have to just fucking rip it as far back as you can.
yeah,
Like just get a nice kind of like a home spot for your scap, maybe where I can't like fucking grab underneath it like that much. Like so many people like just overdo things in bodybuilding. And so I think that that's a really good concept too. I think a lot of people over row. Either they'll see the front
yeah,
like delt go forward, or it'll just be like some crazy like compression of the actual skeleton.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's see. Yeah. So this is kind of interesting. This is kind of what we were talking about. I don't know if we have a good answer for this, but they're talking about how can a narrow ISA or a sway back train their upper back and side rear delts getting close to failure? Because every time they kind of get there, they end up with a lot of cervical pinching, thoracic outlet issues,
Hmm.
trap takes over. They said typical fixes like expanding my rib cage, shifting way back, and training low trap serratus have helped, but I can't seem to push rowing hard in most side delt movements without a flare up. And so, what do you have any response for this? I know that some of this is kind of
Oh,
not exactly your
bodybuilders,
area. What's that?
bodybuilders,
Yeah,
bodybuilders.
well, somebody who's training. Yeah, I mean, everyone I have is kind of bodybuilding focused, but they might. I don't know if this person's like trying to compete or they might just be a normal person who likes to work out.
Hmm. So say mid back.
Whenever,
Which
so
part?
yeah, when they're training like upper back, especially like upper back, rear delts.
Traps takeover.
Yeah,
Ah, so probably so whatever you're doing, that's fine. Along with it, do the drills that will help you expand front and back and open the outlet and bring your COG back. Do it for 2 to 4 weeks. You're still you're still getting it. In spite of all the work, you're still getting the sensations. Then maybe you'll have to take some back steps and reduce the workload from what you're doing. The movement, of course, like the entire movement, the entire program has to be assessed, but you need to take a step back for this to make you expand even more. Like you have to have way more expansion then. And then maybe you can add some of it to see how it affects you. Because if you're already sway back, the body has compressed itself to almost to the max.
yeah.
So, how much of expansion would be needed for you to row heavy upper back and mid back? That's let's that would be a very let's wait and watch kind of a thing. You do this much of the drills and do your workout. See how that works. If it doesn't work, increase the breathing and self mobilization, reduce your workload, and see how that works. So that would be a constant back and forth kind of thing.
Yeah, and when they talk about expanding the rib cage, I don't know if they're meaning just posteriorly or if they're doing an anterior expansion stuff too, because they might want to like throw that on top of there if they're only doing just posterior stuff. That could potentially help if they're swayed back. Um, and then potentially like when we do have these more narrows who have trouble like finding like an anchor, do you have
Uh,
any strategies at all to get them to like maybe find their obliques instead of like hanging on to their neck stuff?
which exercise? Any specific exercise?
Well, when I think of like a lateral raise, right? Like a lot of times, you just have shit like coming
Um,
up because you don't have any kind of anchor to your obliques.
yeah. So lateral raises, what I would say is if you are doing seated, it's always the best. If you're
Yeah.
doing it seated, with the sit bone heaviness, heel heaviness, one arm at a time, and take the lightest of the dumbbell, and then just in the scapular plane, as they say, you don't go too far wide or front here, scapular plane, and come up to the point where you just feel your lateral delts. Don't try to come too far up because now your traps will take over. So here, so suppose this is where your lateral delts fire a lot, but beyond this, traps take over. Suppose stay here. No one's asking you to come here. Stay here
Yeah.
because this space matters. The angle between the clavicle and the top border of the scapula. The bigger it is, the higher you can go without the traps kicking in. But the smaller it is, you will stay lower. Stay lower. You will still get
Oh
pretty
yeah.
good pump here.
Yeah,
So
like stay where you feel it. Like I don't understand where some people are like I feel it here, but I'm supposed to go higher, and like now I don't feel it.
I this
But
this thing, this full range of motion. People get into full range of motion, but that is not full range of motion. That is a lot of compensations and orientations going on at the same time. So, especially you will see it in split squats. It's
yes, and split squats are tricky because sometimes those can be a little more subtle with because you get your unilateral, so you can have the hip hikes and stuff that people are
yeah.
a little bit less aware with. So that's something that's a very big thing that I've kind of tried to push is like active range of tension and like keeping like a reasonable range of motion, but not trying to just move as far away in space as you can. And I think that I've actually had a kind of a big impact on that. So I'm actually really glad to have a little bit of a positive impact around the people around me because like a lot of that was from I don't know. Do you know any of the fitness industry people? You know, like Dr. Mike. You know who that fucking clown is?
Mike Israel.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The
so like
Renaissance. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, so like his style was so pervasive, he was so popular. That's like what got me wanting to work out, like wanting to help people with their workouts because I just saw this shit like being done in the gym that he was pushing. I'm like, dude, these kids are like fucking themselves up. So I get thank yous every single day. We're like, man, thank you. I used to do this shit and like I was hurting, I looked like shit. Now I look so much better and feel so much better. So like I'm not saying like do a partial range on everything. Do what you feel. Like I had a narrow today, the compressed narrow sway back, kind of like what we were talking about, and we were doing incline presses, bilateral. I mean, it's not something we do all the time, dumbbells. And I had him do a pretty partial range because if he goes too far, like there's no more spiral,
yeah.
it's just trapped.
Hmm.
So we're just hanging out in there, and he's like, man, I would have felt like this was such a bad thing. He's like, but I feel so much now, and so like a lot of this is you gotta like don't be afraid to be connected to your body. Like that's something that I just hate nowadays. Is people like are told like not to be intuitive, and for the PRI background too, it's like you have to feel the right fucking thing firing, or we're not gonna get a positional change. So like what you feel matters like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, in the full name of full range of motion, people are just doing this and this. Not great, not
Yeah.
great.
I had a kid the other day, I don't know, not the other day, a few months ago, maybe like 6 months ago. We were at the gym and he wanted me to spot him while he was doing some ridiculous shit. I can't even remember what he was doing. He was using the machine for something that it wasn't for, so he could get like an insane range of motion. And like I'm spotting him. He's working so hard from that huge range. And I just stopped. I go, I'm not gonna contribute to this, dude. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna fucking help this situation. I was like, you can look at my YouTube. But I'm not going to do this. I'm sorry. This is fucking ridiculous. And I just left him. I was like, I'm not doing that. I felt like a dick, but I was like, I have to like, I can't do that. I can't stand by and be passive. And that's all I'm fucking about
Yeah.
is stopping this. So felt kind of bad. Hopefully he checked out my shit and learned a little bit, but, um,
A lot of people will end up like they want to do heroics in the gym and then they end up injuring themselves, and some injuries can really be life altering. So,
yeah, we're not fucking athletes. We're in a controlled environment. You should never be injuring yourself. Like you can stop at any point. We don't get, we're not involved in collisions. We're not pushing ourselves to
yeah,
absolute brink of cardiac failure. So it's like we should be able to
yeah.
control things. This question is, what are your favorite exercises for restoring rotation? Well, the first thing is you got to like get out of stuck in extension, right? So you can actually rotate.
Hmm.
Are there any exercises you like for actual rotation? Are you a fan of chops and things like that?
I've not coached chops on my clients since like, I don't know how long.
You said you
So,
have
but
or you
for
haven't?
rotation, have not.
Really? How come? I don't do that many, but I feel like I should do more. Why don't you do that many chops?
I think a lot of the exercises are unnecessary. Uh, they're very complex for a lot of people to be able to do it, especially my clients. I would rather choose a very simple one done really, really well over a period of time, which will give them the rotation. So so, so if you're asking me for my go-to drill in breathing drills for rotation, rolling would be probably number one.
You like turtle rolls or
If
what?
you just normal sideline.
Oh, like sideline, like lazy roll kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that would be great. But outlet has to be open first.
Yeah.
Uh, and they have to be able to breathe in and out in sideline first, static first, then dynamic. In the gym, I would say rotation wise, supine hook lying alternating press is great. If you're doing
Yeah.
alternating leg press with foot contacts, that's great. If you're doing split squat well, that is rotational stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, me those are the stuff which, if done well, great. If you're doing supine incline press, everything like back of the head, posterior rib cage, SI joint, heels on the ground, like both sides. Now, if you're pressing one arm, this doing this, so you will feel like gentle this happening on
Yeah.
left and right sides. That's your training rotation. That's
Yeah,
what
and
you do.
you can end up training this pretty you can do your work sets or at least like your heavy warm-ups that way too. So like even just like if you're just anchored on like a bench and you're doing like a row and you're kind of like keeping that anchor and not like
Yeah,
turning into that arm
yeah,
like that's really good rotation. You could do like a cable press where you maybe reach a little further on one arm.
yes,
So
cable, yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of really
One
good
arm,
training stimuluses. And then
yeah,
if you know
correct.
you're rotated more one way or the other, you could play with that as well. You could maybe try to turn more into one side. So again, like once you understand your stuff, and this is what I do like on my members channel. I post all my own workouts, and on that, like a lot of times that's what I'm doing is like I'm problem solving, maybe doing a few drills, but then I'm getting a lot of it done with the actual workouts. And I think that's where this stuff will get bigger is when bodybuilders kind of start to realize that you don't have to take away like all your volume and do all this boring shit.
Ah,
Like yeah, you could, there is a for some people especially there is a period of time where you might have to scale back a little bit, but once you get out of that really like tertiary or whatever you want to call it, those in-game representations, then
yeah.
it's way easier to maintain. Once you get out of there, like we don't have to be good. Like we're never going to be the perfect person. Like we're going to be in like secondary compensations at least, but that is
Yes.
manageable, you know?
Yeah, exactly. All you need is to manage it and have some space. That's it. No one is going to be perfect. No one is
Yeah.
going to be perfect. Just have some space. Your body will thank you in the long run.
Yeah. All right, this is from my guy. Let's see what he says. If someone is stuck in an inhaled position, like he is really, how do you learn to exhale and keep the air out? So we talked about doing exhales with a pause is really big. Um,
Pause.
yeah, he says it takes about 10 to 12 seconds for him to fully exhale mouth open. And then because he gets so much air out, he can't hold his breath. Okay, so I guess I already told him that. So I
10 to
don't
12 seconds. Wow.
so what do you think about that? This is also I love you, Josh. Josh is a little neurotic. I mean, he's got a little bit of issues, so he's one of those people that's really hyper aware of his issues. So, what do you have any advice for this situation?
Uh, so for breathing, I would say if you can exhale well, what that person is ending up doing, because his statements do not match up. He said 10 to 12 second exhale and then the inhale feels hard. He said,
No, I was saying so then he can't hold. He said it takes about 10 to 12 seconds for me to fully exhale with my mouth open. Then because I get so much air out, he's like I think he's having like a panic attack and like he's already exhaled for
yeah.
so long, he needs to get the air back in.
So things do not add up. The way he's exhaling is
Too,
is not syncing up. So
too
what it
much.
should be like, air got out, pause gentle, and then inhale from there. What he's ending up doing is now he's forcing, forcing. Now he's squeezing. He
Yeah.
does not realize, but he's squeezing. Gentle exhale. If you have done gentle exhale for 10, 12 seconds, the pause should be like smooth. And then the inhalation should be amazing. But what he's ending up doing to get air out, like this.
Do you think maybe
Now
nasal
he,
exhales?
for him, yeah, if because people get too much into, oh, the exhalation should be this long and I have to get all the air out. No, chill out, dude. Just be gentle till your comfort zone. Six pack, chill. Everything chill. If your body is changing height, is shrinking a bit, your head is changing, the head is changing positions. Not great. It's not good. You're not exhaling for 10 to 12 seconds. Gentle, long, gentle exhalation. It's like forcing things out, and now you, I need air. That's what's happening with him.
Yeah, I think so too. Like the something I cue people is like you should not have any a single like millimeter loss of height if you're doing it right. You shouldn't
Yeah.
notice that you're dropping. So any even if it's really subtle, that's an orientation. That's not your deeper stuff doing
His,
it.
his gentle exhalation would be at max 4 seconds.
Yeah, that's what I'm
At max.
thinking. Yeah, yeah. Uh, this is interesting. Does trying to intentionally put weight on the left heel while simply walking help to get out of late propulsion on the left side and decompress the pelvis there as well? Or does it not do anything?
The question is, how long are you going to do it? So how long are you going to do it? If your body does not have the shape in order to get there, if you try to spend more time, so okay, I will be spending more time. I will get into left early propulsion, blah blah blah. You try to spend more time, and what you end up doing is like rolling in or collapsing in. You're spending more time, duration wise, great, but what you are ending up doing is this, or you're rolling out or something like that. If you do not have the shape to start with, even if you try, it's not going to happen. You have to create the shape first.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to do this type of stuff. Like you can be super intuitive and know your body and you can do subtle things, but it's more often than not you're gonna like overdo it. Something that I did that like I was trying to do something similar. I was like, I fell into like such the perfect left AIC, right BC pattern. Like that's why I loved PRI when I first did it because I was like, this is me to the T. And so something that I did that would like help me at least temporarily is like I would actually like coil and get in like change my rib shape and everything and then start walking. So I would kind of like get almost like a wet kind of thing where I was holding something or I'd just kind of coil and I'd walk that way for a while. And then I could go off and then I could tell like, okay, my foot doesn't want to spin out quite so bad. I could get a little more equal hand contact. But I was, like you said, I was changing the shape of everything above and like I'm not doing that very long. I'm not going to walk around all fucking coiled and compressing my left side, expanding my right. So you can do things, but it's so subtle. And then I do think that there's something to be said too, right, about a narrow versus a wide. Because if a wide is actively putting that pressure in, they're putting a lot more force than a narrow. And so like a wide sometimes can like skew themselves too much potentially and like create changes. And then whereas a narrow, sometimes, sometimes they can create really big changes quick too if they can actually apply the right force. But a lot of times they're not providing that force. Like what I've found is like with a narrow, I can play with foot positions like at the same time, really a lot, and I can create the change of the pelvis. If I try to do that the wide, it's almost like the one that I'm trying to be lighter with is not light enough, and I don't create the change I want. So a lot of times with wides, I'll have to do kickstand positions or things like that where I can really focus on just like the one foot kind of driving the pressure into the ground.
Hmm. But the walking thing that you talked about, pretty interesting because people have to understand that just because you spent more time does not mean that you got what you wanted.
Yeah, you gotta breathe.
Because in order to be heel heavy on that side and spend enough time, you have to have the shape of a rib cage that can posteriorly expand and not side bend. A lot of people, oh, let me spend more time this, and they end up side bending. If you're side bending, not happening.
Yeah.
You That's a lack of IR compensation. So either you are like doing, you're most likely you're collapsing in. You should be able to keep a square calcaneus and then go forward. Most people who try to spend more time intentionally are unable to do so because they cannot keep a square calcaneus. They're either dumping in, or if they're very compressed, they will kind of slightly roll out. So just spending more time is not going to do things. You have to keep the left outlet open, left ilium IR, left rib cage which can expand to the back, a cervical spine that can slowly turn to the left, a cranium that can slowly turn to the left, a jaw that can slightly turn to the right. A lot of things have to happen throughout the body. Spending time, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
why I
going to
got
do.
into that. Not get into, I was already into PRI, but that's why I liked some of the WEC method stuff because there's a lot of like crossover. And you're probably not familiar with WEC method, but it's kind of like it's all about locomotion. The guy's kind of crazy, but he's cool. And his whole thing is he does coiling and like rotational training. And that's something that
Mhm.
I would have people do. And I did it for myself too. Like before I was walking, kind of one of the things I would hold isometric, that split squat where we're trying to get the left ribs compressed a little bit, but exactly, we're not trying to teeter totter to where you are leaning over the shoulder. It's just a little bit of like ER and IR of the ribs. Back will still be expanding. You have like the elbow forward, and this right's kind of opened up, and then you're really focusing on those contact points. He wants you a little bit more on the first med head because this is a little bit more like athletic, like late propulsion. But like getting into that position, that was me getting into like a right AIC, or that was me getting like out of my left AIC essentially. And so it's like I all these boxes just checked. I was like, oh, there's so much like so many systems have similar. I mean, even if they're not same lens at all. And I think that when you start seeing similarities between different systems, like that's when you can really see that something has value because they've come to the similar conclusions through totally different lenses. And he's all about being able to alternate from that to either side but it's like I can do certain things where I might start in the coil on the right and I'll RMT, I'll get out of it and go back, which is essentially kind of like being able to get to late propulsion, get to like later ER. Whereas in the left, I might do some stuff staying in that coiled position versus transitioning out of, or I might do a little bit of both. But you can do a lot of different things with the coiled core and the RMT training if you're aware of your stuff. And you got to be aware of the stuff because, like you said, I have a lot of people they'll start like squeezing back and they're compressing in the back or they're teeter-tottering over. But it's kind of like if you have the whole like all the cues you give, like that's what he wants you to be aware of. Your head needs to go over your toe, it needs to tilt to the side laterally, and it should all kind of happen naturally. And it's cool to see like people that do that get better at that and their movement options get better and they're kind of applying expansion compression stuff without even realizing it, you know? So it's a totally different lens to look at it. I'll send you, I mean, his stuff's
I would
kind of
I
out there, but it's
also
got some
say, I
cool
would
stuff.
also say I I use Bill's stuff a lot,
Oh yeah.
and that is I would say for me by far the closest to reality that I've seen,
Oh yeah.
physics wise, everything was closest to reality. He very well says if you're doing a split squat, the front foot for suppose the left side is forward, uh, right side is back. You don't try to do anything with the trunk. If you have enough space to begin with, you have the shape to do the things. If when you are going down with left foot forward, your trunk will automatically like turn to the left. You don't have to do anything, and that's exactly the thing. You don't have to like side bend or do something. You stay vertical. This turn, it has happened. This turn has happened. Left has yielded, gone back. Right has slightly come forward. Not this, but sternum. While holding on to the ISA, sternum expands and that squares up the pelvis. Like holding on to this, sternum expanding, uh, chest expansion, that and left back, that's that's a pretty good turn. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love the Bill stuff.
I mean, like we talked about Bill a little bit. Yeah, I mean, we all love Bill stuff. The one thing I kind of think of like the WEC stuff is like more like PRI like integrated moves at the end, you know, like not stuff that I would be necessarily be doing to create the initial change, but you know, do you still I used to love some of those PRI integrated moves. If I'm not like far off, I can do a couple of different ones and or just one different one and that'll like check all my boxes at once. So definitely not something I think would be like the way to start, but it is a way to kind of tie some stuff together in a training environment. Um, with where did you first get exposed to Bill through Sean, or you knew Bill before that?
No, no. First, I discovered PRI. Then I discovered Bill stuff on the internet. Yeah, and then I got to know. Okay, like just talk to Sean, and he was someone who went to the intensive. I got to learn through him. So yeah, but
Is
I
there I would
discovered Bill.
I always like to ask this question for people that are into Bill stuff because it's a hard question to answer. But is there anything that you see or that you like learned in practice that maybe you disagree with as far as his model or his way of doing things? Or you think there might be a
I would
better
say
way? It's hard to disagree, but maybe there's a different different tactic.
I disagree. No, but the thing is, um, a lot of because what I feel he's a scientist at this point, and he's looking at the human body as like he's a scientist. He needs to know everything. The problem becomes when a lot of coaches and clinicians act, try acting like him or try acting like scientist. You're not. You're a coach or clinician. You need much lesser moves to be done really well to get the results for your clients. You don't have to like be so deep like a scientist, at least now initially in your career. So that's what I would say, but he is doing what he's doing his best. So I disagree, no, but I think one thing, I feel his stuff is not that organized.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think he's getting better at
yeah,
it
like
now, but yeah.
it kind of random. Anyone who goes there, it's like some foot, some ribcage, some
Okay.
pelvis, like it's
This is what I said. I said if you're trying to learn from Bill, it's kind of like you're learning a language just by going to a foreign country. You're just gonna get planted in there, and maybe you'll pick it up eventually. You'll just get immersed. But
yeah.
yeah,
This is what I did. I started in lockdown, PRI, all the PRI courses, videos, build YouTube videos, learn from his Instagram videos, and mental model, writing it down. Like,
yeah,
okay, what are the similarities? What doesn't match? If it doesn't match, who makes more sense? And doing things on myself, my family, my friends, and then slowly coming out with, okay, this is where this is what I resonate more with. And yeah, it took me quite some time. Yeah. But
So
yeah, that's how I did it.
do you think of it like on a different level with your engineering background? Because I mean, he's taken into account so many principles that kind of go almost beyond just like biology in a certain extent. Like how do like what how can you look at it a little differently with your perspective? Because it's like he's taking in laws of physics in a way that most other models want. So I'm just curious if you have a little perspective on that.
Yeah, he does talk about waves and all, but uh, how do I say? The helical structure of bones is very, very interesting. The long bones having helical structure
Yeah.
makes so much sense. The bony bends is, I think, Bill talks about it in depth, like the bony bends that happen, and that is something that makes a shit ton of sense. That is where my engineering brain kind of loves that thing. Like it's like a machinery. You fix the foot, then the top part gets sorted like that, like everything starts untwisting. So like a wave. So that is something very, very interesting that Bill does. And the bony bends and shape changes, kudos to him. He uh, amazing. That's some scientific mind that plays into this.
Yeah. Um, did you ever get into the biotensegrity stuff? Did you go down that rabbit hole? Yeah, I don't know if there's
No.
a need to really. Real quick, maybe we could go over this. I've had a couple requests for this, and I was gonna like touch on a little bit, but it's
Yeah,
something that
yeah,
Bill
yeah.
talks about. Um,
One sec. Let me switch on the
sure.
battery.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
Last one.
Yeah.
A lot of these questions we kind of answered as well. I'm looking at some of them.
Yes.
Like there's a question about a wide ISA, how I recommended not starting hook line. They were asking for other solutions, so we kind of talked about that. So something that people get confused about, and I think it's just a terminology thing. I don't think it's necessarily the hardest thing to understand is the whole concentric and eccentric orientation with yielding and overcoming actions in the model. I was
Okay.
wondering if you could just kind of like shed some light on it, give your perspective on it, and like
Mhm.
maybe some situations where you could like tease it out a little bit, if just for people to have a little better understanding. Because I think I use some terms and I explain it, but it's like unless you see where I'm explaining it, you know what I mean? It's kind of like it's hard to explain something over every single time you talk about it. But I think that this is a concept
Uh,
that bodybuilders don't really understand, I guess, like the actual when it comes to the soft tissue as well.
mm, so eccentric and concentric overcoming, yielding, overcoming. So eccentric, concentric is muscular actions. Yielding, overcoming are connective tissue actions. So okay, early, middle, late. Let's talk about early and late propulsion. So early is when your foot strikes the ground. The moment your foot strikes the ground and the shin is behind the foot, that is early propulsion. The pelvis is still slightly externally rotated at that point, like the sacrum counternutates, like it falls back. That is relaxation in the connective tissue there, that's yielding, but still it is an externally rotated pelvis shape. So it is still slightly concentric around here, but it's more relaxed. The connective tissue wise, it's more relaxed. So it's not like pushing forward hard. It's
Slowing you down.
relaxed,
Yeah.
slowing you down, still concentric, slowing you
Yeah.
down. It comes to middle propulsion, opens up eccentric orientation of the muscles here, and slowing you down massively. So that's yielding again. But now, when you're pushing through the ball of big toe and propelling to the other side, like now you are propelling. Like it's not slowing you down; it's pushing you faster forward, and that will concentric orientation again, just like the early propulsion. But now it's overcoming. It's pushing you. It's not not this. It's this now. So that's the two difference. The ER shape, two different ER shapes, but two different purposes. One slows you down, one pushes you forward.
Yeah, so
So
you could be eccentrically or concentrically oriented as far as the musculature, and you could be doing an overcoming or a yielding action. Like I think some people think that
yes, yes,
they're paired up a certain ways, but all that is describing is like muscle length and then what the connective tissue is doing essentially.
yes.
And then so like what's another example of like during an exercise? What about like during like a squat? Is there
Okay, let me let me say this. Whenever, whenever your your feet are on the ground or your foot is on the ground, you are producing force into the ground, which helps you to push the organs up from the pelvic floor. It helps you. Otherwise, you would collapse. So, anterior outlet. So, suppose we are doing a split squat with this is the left, this is the right, left. So, anytime you're doing split squat, left leg forward, this has to be overcoming here. Has to be overcoming here in order to push organs up. But isometric, whenever you're doing isometric, suppose you're just staying here in an isometric position, just staying here. After a point, you will start shivering and like after a point, you will just give up. Why? The reason being, the more yes, when the foot is in touch, it's overcoming into the anterior outlet. But over time, as you spend more and more time in this position, this overcoming starts to get to yielding because you're spending a lot of time, and that reduces your pelvic floor's ability to like push the organs up. And that is why your like body says, I'm gonna collapse, the organs will go down. So either you change shape, change the leg, or get into a different position, or push back up, do something. That is why you're done. Right? Beyond the point, you can't really do that. So that is what is happening. Yielding versus overcoming. You are overcoming, but after a point, it will slowly start to yield. So
Yeah,
that's
nice.
what happens.
Let's real quick, we'll finish with some of what are some of the other weird shit that you see? We talked about small penis dudes and we talked about, not his fault. His he can't breathe right. We talked a little bit about some of the interesting stuff with the facial aesthetics. What's some of the weirder stuff you get? Because I'm sure you get some weird stuff.
Yeah, so with experience, I'm dealing with more and more of the complex states, complex cases. So in the last few months, uh, a lot of people with anxiety issues, uh, they have a memory that if I lie down in supine or if I lie down in sideline, I get the pain, a massive pain, neck pain. So that kind of bothers them. And if I ask them, okay, what position hurts you? This is sideline. I said, okay, let's do seated and supine and other positions, and then let's check if sideline hurts you or not. Because if it doesn't, we have made progress. They get to sideline and they're like restless, constantly restless. I'm like, what happened? No, I'm anticipating the pain to come in. It might come anytime. It's just not coming yet, but it will come. I'm like, oh, pain has affected them mentally so much that they're now in anticipation of pain. And that is a very anxious state to be in. I've had people who just things which we take for granted, like just this tight, tight. So you have to be nasal with them, like really, really, really slow, and over time change the shape of the rib cage and pelvis so that they can even breathe the way you and I take for granted to for them to even reach there. People who have uh, issues emptying their bladder while they urinate, that is there. They cannot poop well. It's like something is inside. Constipation is a huge pelvic floor problem. Constipation, uh, erectile issues. Uh, yeah, um, trigeminal neuralgia is something that I'm
What is that
working on
one?
recently. Trigeminal neuralgia.
What is that?
So it's like so the facial cranial nerve. It's you can say it's the sciatica of the face. It's like here, 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 three nine trigeminal. It's like three nerve endings on the cranium, and imagine that feeling compressed on the face.
No, yeah.
So palpitations in the face or face feeling like logged. So it's a compression that has gone up until the cranium because the ribcage and pelvis have gotten so stiff. Cranium is usually the last place. And then if the cranium gets so much of compression, imagine like it's the temporal muscles pulling down on the bones and squeezed there. So for that, you have to be like really patient, gentle, create shape change in the ribcage pelvis. Like this is fine, but we have to first change the shape down there. And slowly, when your neck, cervical spine starts rotating well, that's where cranium starts to free up. Uh, those are the cranial. I'm telling you, cranial and pelvic floor ratios can make life hell. Knee, elbow, ankle, shoulder, you can manage. You can manage somehow or the other, but cranium and pelvic floor, it sucks the life out.
Yeah, that's not the worst. Um, Real quick, I'm curious, have you seen changes in blood work ever from working with people from like reducing their fight or flight responses ever? Is that something you've ever noticed?
Oh no, no. Usually, no, I've never done that. You once people start feeling better, we've never done that. Usually, symptoms are the biggest marker of change. So,
Yeah, I'm curious, like if certain measures would be better and different if you like if it was something where you had
could
like
be,
a
yeah,
vagus nerve getting impinged or something. So I've had somebody tell me
yeah.
they had some pretty big improvements on blood work before, but I'm just curious. They test like their cortisol level. They test like their like some
Mhm.
good stuff. So I'm just curious. So interesting. It's
Blood
cool to think
pressure
about.
levels
Yeah,
that could also change, especially in your population, like all time. Yeah, yeah. This
yeah.
like pressure levels, like constant muscular concentric activity will elevate your blood pressures chronically, like
Oh yeah.
little by little over time. And
And then like I talk about myself as an example. So I'm a light heavyweight bodybuilder. Like I'm considered obese, but I'm not huge for my bodybuilding standards. But I did have sleep apnea, and now like I don't.
yeah,
So I mean, I think at a
what
certain
what,
point, if
what was
you're
the story? When did you discover you had sleep apnea? Like, what's your story?
2021, 2022. I mean, I was just drowning in my sleep and like my girl would be like, I thought you were fucking dead. You didn't breathe for like a minute. And like I would just wake up feeling like I was just drowning. I would snore so bad. So I did the I got a CPAP and it was one of the automatic ones. And it just kept adjusting the setting down lower and lower until it went because I wasn't adjusting. It was just based off of my airflow. And then it went to like the bottom setting. And I was like, maybe I don't fucking need this. And then I just didn't need it. I didn't lose any weight or anything, but I changed my setup a lot as far as like living in extension tone and stuff. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not telling people to get rid of your CPAP machines, but it can help with that and maybe get it to where you might not need one eventually.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
Sleep apnea is that's scary.
yeah, yeah. It was a weird feeling, just waking up just so tired after sleeping all night. I'm like, why do I feel like shit? It's because you're not really fucking sleeping. You're fighting not to die all night. But man, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I know it's late over there, and like I said, I think you do really good work, especially on your IG. I think that that's so good for people. I see it's getting bigger now too, so that's awesome. I'm glad I've been able to send a couple
Thank
people. I
you.
don't have a lot, but I'm able to send a few over there. Where can people
Thank you.
find you and like what are you working on? Is there anything you're putting out?
Yeah, so people can find me on Instagram, fractal.biomechanics, Ankur Bhattacharjee, or Fractal Biomechanics on Instagram. You can find me there, and you can DM me, or you can also go to my website, which is linked in the link tree in my bio. You can go and book a appointment there on my website as well. So
And you
yeah,
still involved with running AMP? You help with that?
yeah, it's going on. The round is going on. So yeah.
Nice. Cool.
So
Awesome. Well,
I mentor coaches and clinicians through AMP education, and I also uh, help people in pain, whether it's Gen Pop or sometimes bodybuilders, powerlifters, strongmen. So I don't do their main work. I just help them with their accessory lifts and mobilization stuff, as you know, so that they can create some space so
yeah.
that they can live well and lift well. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's where a lot of times like I come in too is like a lot of people they make a little change but they don't know how to keep it in the gym. Like sometimes they're like, okay, like what the fuck now I'm better but I'm gonna fuck myself up. So yeah, definitely check out
Oh,
Ankoor stuff.
oh God, this is a big thing, especially people who have been very active and suddenly pain issues, and you see their ego just does not want to give up. Like, no, I will not reduce or I will not eliminate anything. I will do all your stuff and let's see what happens. But if it still doesn't happen, body is telling you like slightly take a step back, please. But then, uh, you know, sometimes the physical activity that you do or anything in life, if you attach too much of yourself to it, that becomes your identity, and slightly taking steps back feels like an identity threat to you, and that can become a problem. You might become your own problem in your own healing journey.
Yeah, you're gonna slow your progression down. Like the fastest way is not always a straight line because you got fucking
Yes,
roadblocks and shit in front of you. Sometimes you gotta take a step back and
yes,
go around. And this is a long
yeah,
game. We're not trying to work out for 10 years. You're trying to work out for your whole life. So appreciate it.
for
You put
life.
out
Yeah.
awesome stuff. Definitely check them out. And thank you so much for your time, brother.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
I appreciate it. Have a good one, man.
Have a good one.